Hey guys, thanks for joining the Edgar webinar. Hey guys, thanks for joining the Edgar webinar. Appreciate your patience as we're waiting a couple of minutes to get the last few people to come on in, and then we'll get started in the next 3 minutes here. We will have someone monitoring the chat from me, Edgar, over on your right-hand side. So if at any time you do have any questions about what's going on the webinar, please feel free to pop in there. We love hearing from the community and chatting with you guys. And thanks for your patience as we get started in the next couple of minutes here. All right, so we're going to get started in about a minute here. Definitely thanks for joining us. Like I mentioned before, if you are interested in joining the discussion at any point throughout the webinar, there is a little chat box to the right of your screen. My colleague Harrison will be in there answering any of your questions that you have. We love chatting with the community, so definitely feel free to pop them in there. And we'll go ahead and get started now here. Like I said, thanks for joining. Today, we're going to be chatting a little bit about the best times to post on your social media network. So we're going to go over some examples of Edgar-specific schedules and how we found the details to add into our Edgar account on when the best times to post are. One of the things I really want to stress before getting started is that your posting schedule really should be unique based on when your audience is online and when you do get the most engagement from your audience. So this type of content that we're showing here today, again, is based upon what we find in our account. We really do encourage you after the webinar here today to go into your own specific account, learn a little bit about your audience, and take that into account when you are setting up your schedule. This really is one of my favorite topics to chat about because I'm sure you've all heard some generalizations from specific people, whether it's on a blog post or just from chatting on social media with your colleagues, that there's a certain number, a magic number to post for Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. And this is certainly something that is debated. However, this webinar is going to go over why you should maybe ignore these broad generalizations about when you should post on social media, and really how beneficial it is to get to know your own audience when thinking about the frequency and times that you're reaching out to them with your status updates. Cool. So let's jump right in. Like I said, feel free to post any questions in the chat box to the right. Let us know what's going on. And we'll go ahead and pop right in. So we like to kind of say that without any data, posting on social media feels a little bit like you're dressing a room while you're blindfolded. You don't really know who you're talking to or if they're in the room or what's going on there. So if you want to post your updates at the best possible times, you do need to know a few things. When your followers are online, what type of updates perform best, and what times you should be posting those updates. Luckily, both Facebook and Twitter make it super easy to find this information right in the app. Finding the right times to post on Twitter is especially important, given the half-life of a tweet these days is only about 30 minutes. And there's so many statistics out there about how half of your followers only log into Facebook and Twitter for like a minute a day, thumbing through their news feed and then abandoning the site. So just looking at this kind of data and the massive amounts of tweets that people are sending out and the massive amounts of Facebook status updates people are sending out, the importance of getting these questions answered so your information is relevant and can be seen by the right people at the right time is really worth taking the time to learn. Cool. So to make sure you're placing your tweets at an effective time, we'll start with Twitter here. One of the things that we do recommend is to check out a site called Tweeriad. You can glean a lot from your Google Analytics, of course, and from your Facebook insights on when your audience is online. But this is a free tool that you can use along with this and along with Twitter Analytics to get some awesome information. So if you sign up for a Tweeriad account, we'll go over a quick glimpse here of what you'll see inside once you do log in. So this is an actual analysis from the Edgar's Tweeriad account. On this graph here, you'll see that the slide shows the weekdays of the majority of our followers and when they're online and when they're on Twitter. As you can see here, the majority of our specific followers are online between 2 p.m. and 11 p.m. And that those are the times that we're really going to want to focus on getting our status updates out on Twitter. This may indicate that we want to reach as many users as possible, and let's try posting around those times to do so. So if charts aren't a thing, Tweeriad also sums up this data for you in a little glimpse right here. So I'm specifically someone who has a little bit of trouble with data in general, and this application, let me tell you, is so easy to get that information. So again, just getting to know that specific time of day when most of your Twitter followers are online is kind of the first baseline of when you can learn, okay, cool, these are the times where I should be spending my effort. These are the times where I should be adding those time slots to my Edgar schedule in order to really get my reach to be increased. Cool. So exposure isn't the only thing that Tweeriad is good for, and it isn't really the only thing that matters when you're determining the best times to tweet. Depending upon the type of update you're sharing, you may also want to prioritize the engagement and the visibility. So similar to that other chart, this isn't a perfect representation. It's going to extrapolate the data based upon a recent subset of your followers. You can see here at the bottom of the screen that this chart is based on the 600 most recent tweets that were tweeted at me, Edgar was mentioned in. So again, take it with a grain of salt, but this is an awesome way that you can also see kind of the engagement that you're receiving, which is really something that we like to focus on here, creating that community, making sure that we're talking to our followers, and something you may want to try with your audience as well. Cool. So this leads to the last little bit on Tweeriad that we'll cover here. And this is how important it is to check both of these charts together, because the more followers you do have online does not necessarily mean the more mentions and replies and engagements that you're receiving. So below, you'll see that these two charts can be overlaid on top of each other here. The online users is in blue there, while the replies mention is in orange. So you can see here, generally, we do receive that steady stream of replies and mentions in the morning between 9 and noon, despite the fact that our numbers of people who are online are a little bit lower there. Conversely, we have a much higher number of followers online later in the evening, as we chatted about on that first slide, but not as many of them reply to our mentions, and they don't add us with our handle and stuff like that. So the times when it's really best to post will be the ones that these two lines overlap the most. And you can see here near the top of this chart that they do overlap the most around 3, 5, and 6 p.m. So again, based upon that first chart, we were like, oh, we should post maybe a little bit later. However, those tweets don't get as much engagement, maybe meaning that more quality people who want to actually reach out and chat to us and engage with us, it's better to kind of focus on this 3, 5, and 6 p.m. time. So again, Tweeriad is a great option to kind of get that baseline level of when to post. Cool. So while this sort of information does provide a lot of valuable direction on when you should be tweeting, it doesn't tell you a lot about the tweets that you've actually posted or anything like that. So for that, we're going to recommend that you use Twitter's analytics page. So you can find that here. It's the URL analytics.twitter.com. If you're logged into your Twitter account already, this URL will redirect you right to your specific analytics where you can start learning about your strategy, how it works, and how to change your tweets to get the really best results here. This part of Twitter analytics is going to be really important as we go through here to keep in mind about thinking about some of the changes that are made to social media these days. All the networks are going to be really focusing on wanting to make authentic connections with your audience. So keep in mind on Twitter, this can be as simple as a change that you don't always just want to be sharing just your link with a headline anymore. You want to do a simple thing like adding your own little line of text to introduce it. What do you think valuable? What do you think is valuable in this post? Try to give as much value in the tweet itself. This is really especially achievable these days as Twitter did increase that limit to 280 characters that you're able to now tweet. This new limit makes it possible for you to put as much effort as you do into like your status updates on Facebook and LinkedIn, adding a little bit more value right into the tweet and not just relying on people getting hooked by that headline and clicking over. Take some time, for example, when constructing a tweet to think of Twitter like a real life networking event. Don't just share that URL. If you were talking to someone, what would you want to say about that? Make it actionable and personable. And this is what people will really start to remember your brand from. You can do something as simple as adding in more emojis with those extra characters. Humans are so driven by emotion when they're making purchase decisions and when they're really connecting with brands. So don't be afraid to use those happy face emoji expressions, stuff like that, to give your tweets a little bit more character. So as we go through this Twitter analytics, you'll learn a little bit about the demographics of your audience and getting these posting times, but not only to help inform those posting times, but like I was mentioning, to really help inform the content of your tweets. It's about learning to talk to your members and connect with them on a level that's really going to help them increase what we call your know, like, and trust factor on social media. So keep in mind how you can learn about your audience, how you can really help them know your brand, like your brand, and getting to that all-important trust factor so that they're going to become really great social advocates for you. Cool. So let's move into the Twitter analytics section. When you first come to your Twitter analytics tab, you're directed to this homepage here. So as I mentioned, this is our Edgar Twitter analytics right now. This is a great place that you can set goals on how many times a day you want to tweet in a given month. That first number over here that you see, that 311 number on your screen to the left. You can see your follower count if it goes up and down. You can see how many times you tweeted here. So this top level is just a really great overview that gives you a snapshot of your top tweets, stuff like that. So a great place just to kind of get started looking at things. But it really starts to get interesting when you do start to go over a little bit to the left on that upper navigation bar that you see at the top. So right now we have home selected. If you go over to that tweets tab, this is when things do start to get a lot more interesting. So this is the tweets page when you first come to it here. So you'll notice that Twitter shows you data for your most recent tweets with the option to dig a little bit deeper, and we'll go into that in a little bit. Some terms to get to know before we go a little bit further in is just how Twitter does define your engagement and your reach. These numbers are found under the graph here. They're a little bit small on this screen, but under that little bar graph, you'll notice things like impression, engagements, and engagement rate. So you'll want to make sure that you're kind of getting these in your head on what they are. So the impressions this is going to be the number of times people saw a tweet. So this is kind of like reach on Facebook. The next column over, you'll see says engagements. And this is the total time the user interacted with a tweet. So this interaction can be anything if they clicked on a link, if they mentioned your handle, if they clicked on your hashtag even. These things are all considered engagement of the tweet. And then that last column that you see in the percentage, this is your engagement rate. And Twitter is really, really awesome here. And they do the math for you, dividing your engagement and your impressions to give you this engagement rate, which makes it a really nice way to scroll through and be able to see quickly the effectiveness of a tweet, whether your goal is to get more people to see it or engage with it that way. So when you're on your tweets tab here, you can scroll down, and this is a section of our tweets that goes into the individual engagement rate, again, impressions, reach of each tweet here. So in this Twitter Analytics tab, the first column is the impressions. So how many people are seeing the tweets? The second column is the interaction. And the third column, again, is that engagement rate. So looking at the specific numbers here, and thinking about the time that it's consuming people to have to engage with these and stuff, if you're just starting out here, this can be a great place to kind of go through and see if you're on point for the language you're using in order to engage your members, stuff like that. You want to really make sure that you're creating feedback loops with your team as well as you're starting to look into this data. If your copywriting team is different than your team who's posting to social media, let them know which ones are really getting the most engagement. So, hey, this headline did really well. Look how many people clicked through for it. Or, hey, this copy might not have really reached our members. Maybe we should tweak it next time. So think of the creative ways that you can use this data as well in order to feed that information back to your team. You can really get a lot of buy-in from either your graphic designers or your copywriters, as I mentioned, as you're going through here, to really make sure you're presenting them with the information they need in order to create that awesome content that's providing your followers as much value as possible. Cool. So from these tweets, we can dial in a little bit more even by clicking on a specific tweet. So from here, you can see I clicked on one of these tweets, and you can actually see the details of things like if someone has retweeted it or if someone has clicked on it. As I mentioned, that engagement is going ahead and putting a lot of different things into this number. And this just breaks it down a little bit more. So the impressions number you see there is how many people saw it. So that's 677. The total engagements is then broken down, whether it's someone liking it, retweeting it, clicking on the links. So this can really help to inform how your post is doing there. Cool. So something that I really like to point out here is that it's also helpful to pay attention when you're thinking about, if you're getting a lot of engagements on a specific tweet, but maybe it didn't get seen by that many people. This can really help to have you be informed on which tweets you might want to actually spend a little money on to boost. So something we like to think about here at Edgar is that if your post is not seen by a lot of people, but the people who are seeing it are commenting and sharing it a lot, this can really help you think, oh, wow, this is a really valuable piece of information that I want to get out to more of my followers. And it's really helping to let you know that the money you're spending on the tweet posted here is going to be worthwhile because people are really interacting and engaging with it, which is a sign that they love what you're producing there. So you can always click on that boost post section that you find. Again, if you're in your Twitter Insights, this is just under that tweets tab there, clicking on a specific update, and then you can boost that to really make sure it's getting out to the majority of your followers. Cool. So under the tweet tab, going a little bit further here, you can also set specific date ranges. So when you first go there, it is a month's worth that you're seeing. And it's helpful if you can think about the different times that you're changing your strategy. You'll notice the tweet activity here. It's just up in that upper right-hand corner. You can produce a drop-down menu that will allow you to sort this data on different date ranges too. Over time, it's helpful to say if you change your strategy or if you ran a promotion recently, seeing this date-specific data in this range can really help you when the engagement numbers start to come in. If they go up or down, you can see the effectiveness of that specific promotion and of your specific efforts with that. Over time, this data really allows you to essentially check your work. For example, if you projected that tweets would perform best during certain times and certain days, you can use this to really help to see if you were accurate in your thinking. We do also like to stress that you don't want to make a judgment based only on a few tweets. So if you are just getting started, allow that data to accumulate for a little bit of time so you can get a really nice big picture. Then if need be, you can start to experiment and adjust your time slots on your Edgar schedule, adjust the wording in your posts in your library, stuff like that. So you can really start to get to know your audience and make sure you're producing that content that's serving them. Cool. So next to the date range on the tweets there, you'll notice that you also see a little export button. So you can see here, that's the last 28 days. And then next to that, it's export data. So this is an awesome way that you're also able to manipulate all of this, all of the numbers that Twitter is providing you. So you can set that date range and then export it into a spreadsheet. This way you don't have to spend the time to scroll through a tweet one by one in order to see which ones are getting the most impressions and engagements. So, if you set a goal, say, to get an article to get retweeted a certain amount of times, this spreadsheet you can see will allow you to then see that retweet column, see the reply column, and really start to manipulate it to see your most effective tweets there. A really awesome bonus of exporting your Twitter data here is also that you can use this to help get your most popular tweets into Edgar. So Edgar has this awesome import feature here. When you're in your Edgar account, it's going to be in that upper navigation menu that says import. If you click this, you'll notice you can import a CSV. So this is, again, awesome. Once you've downloaded or exported your data from your Twitter account, you can actually clean up that spreadsheet to just leave the tweet. So to just leave the tweet's text right within that first column there. Simply just clean up the spreadsheet, get rid of all the engagement tabs and everything that you see there. And then you can actually import this spreadsheet into the Edgar account. Essentially, your first column, again, will just be all of the tweet text, any URLs that you're sharing. That second column will be the category you'd like it to go into Edgar. And it's an awesome way to get your most popular tweets right into Edgar nice and quickly to help build up that library of content and make sure it's getting seen by the majority of your followers. Cool. So next we'll move on to what I think is one of the more interesting ways to learn about your audience. And that's going to help you really inform the language you're using, what photos you want to use in your tweets, what tone to take with your audience. And this is going to all come from the Audience tab. So when you're in your Twitter Analytics, again, on that upper navigation menu, it says Home, Tweets, and then that third one says Audiences. So once you click that, you're heading over to this section here. We're going to go ahead and just skip over that overview tab for now. You can see it's tabbed out here. The overview one is in green. Right next to it says demographics. So this is a great place, again, to get to know your audience on a really, really micro scaled level. You can use this tab to learn things like your audience's education level, your household income, the language they speak, their home value. It goes really, really deep into the data here. At first, some of this information might seem a little bit more like fun stuff, little bits of trivia about the people who are following you. And you might think, oh, that's cool, but what difference does it really make to me when I'm adding these updates to my Edgar library? In reality, we do think that this information can be really helpful in order for you to get your tweets to be engaged with more. So you can see here some things that you can think and start out with is you don't want to get too overwhelmed in the data. So if you do just start to look at a very basic level, here at Edgar, our followers are about half male and half female. Thinking about the tone we take in our tweets, this can help inform things here, like if we're sharing tips that are targeted to people with more or less financial resources, or if we're with someone that's academic level and experience is the same or different. And this is really great to keep in mind as we are starting to make those different changes in the tweets we're sending out. So get to know your audience, get to know their likes, dislikes, and this is all, again, gleaned from that Audience tab in your Twitter Analytics. Cool. So next in Twitter Analytics, we'll go ahead and pop into the Lifestyle tab. So we're still in the Audience tab in that upper navigation bar. And then if we go 3 tabs over underneath that, it says Lifestyle here. Odds are not much in this list is really going to be hugely surprising because your audience interests are likely what match up at least partially to what your interests are as a business. Some things I like to point out that can really help inform some more ways you can add fun tweets or like fun GIFs into your Twitter posts is that it's potentially surprising when you can learn things like what your followers' favorite TV shows are, what their watching habits are. So you might learn that shockingly few of your Twitter followers actually like sports, which means maybe don't make a lot of sports references or don't add a lot of sports GIFs into your Twitter feed. Or you can see here, Edgar's followers love TV comedy. So maybe we want to put a lot more humor into our posts, really connect with their likes in that way, rather than doing like something that's more politically oriented. So again, don't spend too much time getting really nitty gritty here, but it's a great way to help inform the language you're using when you're constructing your tweets. What makes things even more interesting is that you can actually compare all of this about your own followers to the general Twitter audience at large. And this, again, we're still under that audience tab in the upper navigation menu there. You'll notice under the audience insights that you have a little plus button and it says add comparison audience. So when you click this, what happens is you'll notice that Twitter will actually graph out how your audience is comparing to all of your followers. So that darker red there is going to be your followers or our followers here at Edgar. And then that lighter orange underneath it is all of the users that are in the United States who match up to these things. So a great way, again, to learn a little bit more about how your audience might be differing than the general Twitter users in the US. Cool. So last, we won't go over it here, but keep in mind that there are a couple of other tabs under this audience section, one being consumer behavior and the other being mobile footprint. Keeping in mind this consumer behavior tab keeps you a little bit more informed on the lifestyle tab in that it goes into your consumer orientation information, like what types of credit cards your followers use, what kind of buying habits they have, or you can even pop over to that mobile trends tab you see there and you can see the different devices that your audience prefers. This is awesome information, maybe that you don't use in your tweets specifically, but to help, again, create those feedback loops into your business to really help inform who your customers are. How you use this information is obviously going to differ from person to person, company to company. For example, on ours, we see that our Twitter followers prefer iOS to Android at a pretty significant margin. And that just might mean informing something like when we're tweeting links to Android-specific content from other sources, it isn't going to be as valuable as if we were tweeting iOS-specific content. So again, not going to make a huge difference, but keeping that stuff in mind can really be the difference between you being a company who cares about your audience and who pays attention to those details to really connect and increase that all-important know, like, and trust factor. All right, so we've gone over Twitter a little bit, again, using Tweeria to get to know the times to post, using Twitter Analytics to get to know what tweets that you have updated have done well and to get to know your audience. So now we're going to jump over and chat a little bit about Facebook here. So to start, right now, with a huge emphasis on engagement, we do recommend looking about the comments and shares that are being made to your Facebook posts. Facebook, just like any social network, has a huge incentive to keep people within their platform, to keep people coming back for more. So they always want to make sure that they're serving up this really awesome any really awesome tweets, or excuse me, any really awesome posts that are getting a lot of comments, shares, stuff like that. So make sure you're kind of keeping that in mind as you are starting to add more and more posts to your Edgar library for Facebook. We're really recommending the emphasis on how can you get people to respond. So whether that's introducing a blog post with a question, asking your audience what they think about specific things, really taking the time to go back in and to reply to your audience. This stuff can really help to start get your status updates out there, get it seen in more people's newsfeed. Cool. So, in Facebook, one of the things that Edgar is really great for is creating that consistent, reliable stream of updates for your followers to see. And with Edgar's category-based system of posting, this information that you're having in your Facebook Insights can help you inform what categories you should be focusing on, maybe adding a few more time slots to your schedule versus those you might want to sprinkle in less often. So let's get started here now. Again, you're going to see the URL up top where you can get to this. You can always replace that Meet Edgar section with your page name, or when you go to your page, all you're going to do is click on that Insights tab that you see in the upper navigation bar. So if you do only have a little bit of time and you're just getting started with Facebook Insights, what I suggest doing is going to the Insights tab. Then on that navigation bar to the left, you'll notice about halfway down is a tab that says Posts. This is going to be one of the most valuable places for you to check out in your Facebook Insights. And this is just going to lead you to see the overview of your audience's behavior. So at the top here, you can see a bunch of squares. These are all related to the days of the week. So we can see here, for our specific account that on Mondays and Tuesdays, our number of followers online is almost 500 users lower than other weekdays. So what you do with that information is definitely up to you. But what we do here at Edgar is just knowing that maybe people are online a little bit later in the week after they've done some other things with their social media. So we're going to maybe focus a little later on the week to really get those updates out to our members. So this chart is an average timeline, of course, of when your followers are online throughout the day. A little pro tip when you do come to this section as well is to hover over the squares at the top here where you do see the days of the week and numbers. And this will actually go ahead and sort the graph underneath to show you a little bit more about the times. So again, the squares at the top are just the general numbers of users who are online during the days. And then the graph underneath is going to really help you dial into the times. It can be great to compare this to your Twitter audience to get that holistic view. However, also kind of looking specifically at Facebook, you know, who is going to be online here versus Twitter to help inform the time slots on your Edgar schedule. Cool. So now we're still under that posts tab that we were looking at under your insights. We can also dial in a little bit here for the post type. So Facebook will show you the types of posts that you're sending out, whether it's going to be like a photo or a link, anything like that. And again, this is a great way for you to get to know the types of posts that your audience likes to see. So when you're under your insights, go to the post tabs on the left. We were just on that when your fans are online tab to see the graph. Right next to it is post types, which will show you, you know, do your followers like to see links more? Are they liking pictures more? And this will really help you focus your efforts on adding in the right type of content to your Edgar library. That last tab over that you see here, the top posts from pages you watch, this section is really great. You don't want to spend too much time digging super in here, but it's a great place to keep an eye on what's going on in your specific industry. You know, what are your competitors talking about? What are your what's going on in the world that your specific niche is? And, you know, this can not only inform the things you do on the industry specific news you're sharing, it's also great to see kind of the holes that might be missing in your industry and how you can add your own voice to the trending topics that are going on, inform people of your fresh perspective. Again, with so much noise out there on social media, the posts that we do see do really well are those where you're being authentic and adding in your own voice and really making sure your followers know who you are as a brand. Again, relating it back to that know, like, and trust factor. Cool. So now these last two tabs are not as powerful as that main post tab in your insight, but we do learn a lot about our audience here. So as we're scrolling down, this post section of your insights will show you, again, kind of like those tweets, the specifics of the posts that have gone out. We do recommend just kind of periodically checking in on the performance of your individual updates. You know, here at Edgar, we've been doing this for a while. We've kept an eye on this for a while. So we don't check this daily. You know, rather we check in if we do change our strategy drastically, if there's been an algorithm change within Facebook, just to make sure we're still producing content that's getting seen. Otherwise, we probably check it about every 3 months just to make sure we are on par with what our baseline is and that we're always looking to improve to get our great information out to our followers. So you can see it goes through a long list of updates. What I suggest doing is rather than scrolling through each post, especially as you are getting started, you can actually go back to the overview tab and we can go ahead and download a spreadsheet similar to how you do in Twitter to get this information in one place so you don't have to spend a lot of time scrolling through here. So the overview tab, again, we're still on that insights from the upper navigation bar. The overview tab will be in the left menu. So when you click overview, it's great to say if you've recently, again, changed your routine, anything like that, to check out here to get a great snapshot of what's going on with your audience after those changes. You know, maybe you went from posting once a day to posting 3 times a day, and now you want to see what kind of effect that's having. I'd suggest coming again to this overview section so you can get a holistic view of the performance over time. So here you can see how stats like your engagement and reach fluctuate as you post more or less frequently. Some questions that are easy to get on this tab without having to manipulate the data too much is, you know, as you add more updates to your schedule, are your stats improving? Are you moving it in the right direction? You know, what if you take a few time slots off your schedule or vary the types of posts you're sharing with the category on your schedule? Remember that social media is such an experimental thing when you are doing it. So make sure you're not just kind of leaving your schedule as is, but you're experimenting on the frequency, the best times, the types of category. And Edgar makes it so easy to do that right within the schedule tab. So as we were chatting about at the very start of the webinar, the pages and brands that succeed in many different ways with these kind of different strategies are those that experiment here. There's no right time to post. Keeping that in mind, bringing it back. It's all about creating great content that you think your audience will find interesting. And this overview tab is a great glimpse at if you are making the content that is going to provide that value and really reach your members. So if you do feel like getting a little bit more data, again, this overview tab is where you're going to export that spreadsheet. This is such a powerful part of Facebook Insights. When you do start to export the spreadsheet, you can clean it up, manipulate the data in a lot of ways. So again, when you click on that export data, you can see here you're able to go ahead and tell Facebook the date range, tell the file format, go ahead and let them know if what you'd like to see in the spreadsheet. And then you can click that export data section and you're going ahead and getting a spreadsheet that looks like so. So this is an example spreadsheet of our content that we exported. You can see how this is so helpful to sort, by things like most engaged. So if you wanted to sort by the likes, comments, shares that you're getting, you can sort by people reached. And similar to Twitter, this can really help inform, which post you're going to spend a few dollars on boosting. If your number one priority is for your updates to be seen as many people as possible, this is how you're going to be able to get that information at a really quick and sortable way. Cool. So again, similar to when you're boosting your posts on Twitter, we do recommend if you do find a post that maybe didn't get a lot of reach, but got a ton of engagement, you can just go ahead and click on that update within your Facebook Insights, spend a few dollars and go ahead and boost it to really help the majority of your audience see it. This is a great way to do things. Again, here at Edgar, we only spend a couple dollars on doing this a day. It doesn't have to be something that you budget huge amounts in, but can really help make sure that your strongest content is getting seen and really getting out there to people in order to provide that value that content marketing is so awesome for. Cool. So next, we're going to pop to the People tab of Facebook Insights. So again, upper navigation bar, click on Insights, left navigation menu, click on the People tab, which is the second from the bottom there. This is similar to the information in the demographics tab that we went over on Twitter. And this is great to look at both of these together, and even better to bring in like your Google Analytics information, stuff like that, to get a whole view of who, when, and where your audience really gravitates towards. One of the best things that I recommend starting out looking on the People tab is to see what countries your followers are from. This is amazing for helping you inform, the time zones you should be posting and when you should be adding your time slots on your Edgar schedule. So you can see here that the majority of our followers are in the US, the UK, and Canada. So we're going to put our time slots on the schedule during those time zones. But dialing further down, we also see that we have over 5,000 followers in Australia. So we might want to really focus on getting some of our great content out to that Australian population. The great thing about using Edgar for that is we don't have to be up in the middle of the night to do so. Just do the math, add in a couple of time slots to that time zone on your schedule, and you're good to go to reach that segment. All right, so once you have all of this awesome information, we're going to take it back into Edgar for a minute. So this is a behind the scenes look at something that we've done here at Edgar. So this is our own schedule in our own Edgar account. This little expert is just in an afternoon portion of our schedule. We've used our Twitter analytics and our Facebook Insights to analyze when our audience is most likely to be online and what types of posts they engage with the most, so our categories. And we've created a schedule that rotates content from our custom categories that we've created in the Categories tab in Edgar. Some of the default categories that come with your Edgar account, these are all based upon our own posting schedule here at Edgar. And you can see we've also added in a couple of other random time slots so that users who check social media, maybe at the same time each day, will get a variety of content from us. We do regularly revisit our analytics to see if our audience's habits have changed at all. And then we always do recommend coming back in and tweaking our schedule, tweaking the language you're using in your library to really get the most out of your social media marketing. So while we do have a good baseline for our schedule, we are always looking to improve it. And the ways we do that most is by looking at that Twitter analytics and Facebook insights to really get to know our audience. Cool. Well, thanks so much for joining us today on when to find the best times to post for your audience. We absolutely love chatting with the community at Edgar, so please feel free to let us know what other information you'd like to learn from these webinars. You can always email support@meetedgar.com, and we're more than happy to help out with any questions you have about your account or social media strategy in general. Like I said, thanks for taking your time out of the day to join us today, and I hope you have a really great Tuesday.